Welcome to Cat Has Questions, curiosity, stories, and the strange corners of everyday life. Hello, I'm your host, Kat. Okay, guys, today I have a fun one for us. So, we're going to be talking about the Mandela Effect. I'm sure you've at least heard of this, have experienced it yourself, or have had somebody else experience it and talk to you about it. So, what actually is the Mandela Effect? Because this isn't just, oops, I got something wrong, I spelled something wrong, something like that. It's not just your mom insisting that something happened in 2004 when it was clearly 2007. This is when large groups of people share the same vivid memory of something that never actually happened. Not similar, not like, oh, I think that also happened too, like have the exact same memory of something or thought they had a memory of something. So we're going to talk about the origin story of the term. So the term was coined after people claimed to remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. And not vaguely remembering, they remembered news coverage about it, his widow speaking, televised funeral footage, in classroom discussions, except none of that happened. Mandela was released from prison in 1990. He later became the president of South Africa, and he died in 2013. So how do you explain thousands of people having detailed memories of an event that didn't occur? That's the question. And that question is what makes this fascinating. And before you dismiss this as like, oh, well, those people are just confused, I want you to think about something you were absolutely sure about, something you would have bet money on, something you could picture. And that's the unsettling part. The Mandela Effect isn't about vague recollection. It's about confidence. It's about people saying, no, I know that happened. I have a picture of that. I saw it on the internet, whatever. And then finding out it didn't. So the working definition of the Mandela Effect is a phenomenon where a large number of people share a consistent but false memory. Key word here is consistent. If one person misremembers something, that's normal. If thousands of people misremember it the same way, that feels different. That feels meaningful. And here's where it gets interesting. Before the internet, you may have misremembered something and just never known. You would have just assumed you were correct. Now you Google it and you find, or you ChatGPT it, hey, you find entire forms of people saying, wait, I thought that too. Suddenly your private doubt becomes collective validation, and that validation makes it real, even if it's not. So today we're going to look at the most famous examples, why they feel so convincing, what science says is happening, and yes, the weirder theories. Because we have to, but I promise I'll mostly keep it grounded. Now that we know what the Mandela Effect is, let's ruin your childhood a little bit. Because once you see these, you cannot unsee them, and I'm not going down alone. So one is the Berenstain Bears. We have to start here because this one feels personal. The children's book series, you remember it, you can picture the cover. It's like a mom and a dad and their two kids, bears, they live in a tree. I'll post pictures of this on Instagram as well. There's kind of like a soft yellow background. It's a little cartoon bear family. And the name very clearly in your brain because all the books had the same like Berenstain Bears title across the top. But how do you spell Berenstein? E-I-N at the end of Berenstein, right? Except it has always been spelled A-I-N at the end. So B-E-R-E-S-T-A-I-N, like Berenstain. And people get upset about this one. Not confused, upset, because they can see it. They remember reading it as a kid. They remember spelling it in school. Some people swear their teacher corrected them for spelling it wrong. So how do you explain that one? Also, I have to say, my kids still read some of the Berenstain Bears books, so like I need to go check right now. So let's slow it down a little bit. Stein is an extremely common surname. Einstein, Goldstein, Frankenstein, Bernstein. Stain is not. So your brain sees the first half of the word and then just autofills the ending. And your brain completes the pattern. Wait, so is it pronounced Bernstein? There's no way, right? It's still pronounced Bernstein, right? Oh my gosh. Okay, so your brain's going to choose the statistically most common ending. And then once the version lives in your memory, it solidifies. Now, when you see Bernstein, your brain goes, nope, that's wrong, even though it isn't. That's what makes this one so good. It's subtle, it's believable, and it's almost right. And when you actually see it written correctly, you're like, that is incorrect. But also, if it's supposed to be called the Berenstain Bears, that's not real. Okay, my next example is the Sinbad genie movie, Shazaam. Okay, this one is chaos. Thousands of people insist there was a 1990s movie called Shazaam, starring Sinbad as a genie. They can literally remember the VHS cover, the baggy pants, the gold jewelry, and specific scenes from the movie. Except this movie does not exist. I was like Googling this one. I was looking it up and like trying to figure this one out. I was like, no, it's probably there. And it was not. There is no record of a movie called Shazaam, no production credits, no VHS tapes, nothing. But in 1996, there was a movie called Kazaam, starring Shaquille O'Neal as a genie. So let's look at all the ingredients here. You have Shaquille O'Neal in genie attire, a very 90s fantasy kids movie, the word Kazaam instead of Shazam, and Sinbad, who in the 90s wore colorful, loose, genie-adjacent outfits and stand-up specials. And a name that sounds almost identical to Shazam. Your brain just blends them together because that's what brains do. They compress, they merge, they simplify. And once someone says, well, wasn't that Sinbad? Suddenly your brain goes, yeah, actually I think it was, even though it wasn't. This one fascinates psychologists because it shows how memory can be built from cultural overlap. Not fabrication, not lying, just blending. So the next one is the Monopoly Man's monocle, which if you're not sure what a monocle is, it's like in the older, the 20s, there's like this single eyeglass that's like on a chain. So they use it on one eye to like see through it. Once again, like I said, I'm not great at describing these, so please look at the pictures up on my Instagram. So prepare yourself for this one though. The Monopoly Man does not have a monocle. Mr. Monopoly, rich Uncle Pennybags, no monocle. Look at him. Top hat, yes. Mustache, yes. Monocle, never. So why do we all picture one? Because monocles are shorthand for wealthy old men. Mr. Peanut has one. Caricatures of bankers have one. Villains in cartoons have one. Our brain just associates top hat, mustache, old money equals monocle. So it adds up automatically. And here is something interesting. In the movie Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls, there's a scene where Jim Carrey references the Monopoly Man having a monocle, which keeps reinforcing this false memory. So now pop culture is supporting your incorrect recall, and it becomes even stronger. And this is how collective memory shifts. Not because we're careless, because we're influenced. So we're going to speed it up a little bit. I'm going to throw some at you that are really going to throw you off. So in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the line, mirror, mirror on the wall, which we're also familiar with, it is actually magic mirror on the wall. Go back and watch Snow White, folks. Apparently that is true. Pikachu from Pokémon does not have a black tip on his tail. Another one that's going to throw you, the most famous movie line quote ever maybe from Star Wars, Luke, I am your father. Darth Vader doesn't even actually say that. He says, no, I am your father. If that's definitely not how you remember it, you are not alone. This is just one crazy example of the Mandela Effect. So now the question becomes, if our brains can confidently invent monocles in genie movies, what else are they doing? And more importantly, why? So we've added monocles that don't exist. We've invented a genie movie. We've confidently misspelled a children's book series for decades. Cool. This is a cool place to be. So what is happening? Are our brains broken or are they just doing their job? So I'm going to kind of break down a little bit how the brain works. Okay, so the first thing to understand is that our memory is reconstruction. It's not like a replay. So your brain is not a hard drive. It does not store memories like video files. It does not press play and replay them perfectly every time. Instead, it rebuilds them every time. When you remember something, your brain pulls visual pieces, emotional pieces, context, language, and expectations, and stitches them together in a coherent story. And here's the part that messes with people. Each time you recall a memory, you change it very slightly, not intentionally, just subtly. And then your brain stores the updated version. So memory is less like replaying a recording. It's more like editing a draft over and over and over again. So think about a childhood birthday party. You probably remember it, but how much of the memory is photos you've seen, stories your parents told you, other people's recollections. Memories blend sources. And once blended, it feels singular. It feels real, and that's the key. The Mandela Effect isn't about people lying. It's about confidence in reconstructed memories. Now let's talk about something called the schema theory. A schema is basically a mental template. Your brain builds them to save time. So for example, you walk into a restaurant, you expect a menu, a server, a bill. That expectation is a schema. Now apply that to the Monopoly man. The schema, a wealthy cartoon man. So your template includes a top hat, a mustache, and maybe a monocle. So when you picture him, your brain completes the template, even if the monocle was never there. Same with the Berensteins. Your brain's surname schema says it ends in Stein, so it fills it in. It's not a malfunction, it's efficiency. Your brain is predicting and filling in gaps constantly. And most of the time, it works beautifully. Here's where things can escalate though. Before the internet, you might misremember something and never compare notes. Now, as I mentioned, you Google it. You find a Reddit thread with 8,000 people saying, wait, no, I remember that too. That's powerful because humans are social learners, and if other people validate your memory, your confidence increases. Even if the memory is wrong, this is called social reinforcement, and it strengthens false memories, especially when the alternative feels counterintuitive, like magic mirror instead of mirror, mirror on the wall. Honestly, they missed that one if they said magic mirror instead of mirror, mirror. So when you see thousands of people agreeing with you, your brain relaxes. It says, see, I wasn't crazy, even though you might be a little crazy, or more honestly, you're just slightly mistaken. Confabulation sounds dramatic, but it also sounds a little fabulous. But it simply means your brain fills in missing pieces with what makes sense. Not maliciously, not consciously, just smoothly. Your brain hates gaps. It wants coherence. So if there's a fuzzy detail, it's just going to patch it up a little bit. That's how entire scenes from the non-existent Shazaam movie feel real. They weren't fabricated out of nowhere. They were built from other 90s movies, genie tropes, cultural overlap, familiar imagery. Also, probably, I'm guessing a lot of it is from Kazaam, the Shaq movie. Your brain assembled something plausible and stored it. And here's what I love about this. The Mandela Effect isn't proof that we're foolish. It's proof that we're meaning makers. Our brains are designed for pattern recognition, prediction, storytelling, and social alignment. We are wired to build a coherent world, even if sometimes we slightly misbuild it. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful. But of course, the internet didn't stop at schema theory. Oh no, the internet said, what if? And that's where things get fun. So, we have memory reconstruction, we have schema theory, we have social reinforcement, very rational, very grounded, very scientific. But the internet did not look at the Mandela Effect and say, ah, yes, cognitive psychology. No, the internet said, what if we shifted timelines? So, the first popular theory is that the Mandela Effect is evidence of a parallel universe. The idea is, somewhere in another universe, it was Berenstein. There was a Sinbad genie movie, the Monopoly man did have a monocle, and somehow our timelines crossed, merged, or glitched, and we retained pieces from the other version. Now, am I saying that happened? No, but I am saying it would explain a lot, and I understand why people are drawn to that explanation, because it feels grand, it feels meaningful, it turns confusion into cosmic mystery. The next more outlandish theory is that there's a simulation theory, which means what if we're living in a simulation and what if occasional Mandela effects are just coding errors? Like someone is updating our file, patched the software, and forgot to erase our cached memory. I'm not endorsing this, but I will say, if this is a simulation, the developers are doing a very thorough job with the 90s nostalgia. Here's why this is interesting. The psychological explanation says your brain filled in a pattern. The cosmic explanation says the universe is glitching. Which one is more exciting? Exactly. We are narrative creatures. We like big stories. We like mystery. We like meaning. So when something feels off, our brain searches for the most satisfying explanation, even if the most simple one is the most accurate. But here's the thing. The scientific explanation doesn't make this less fascinating. It makes it more fascinating because it means thousands of human brains operating independently can build the same incorrect pattern. That's not random, that's structure. That's shared culture, that's predictable cognition. And that's powerful, but also a little slightly unsettling. I don't think the Mandela Effect proves that we jumped timelines. I don't think it proves we're in a glitching simulation, even though it feels like it in the current world. But I do think it proves something about us. We are wired for patterns, we are wired for familiarity, we are wired to make stories feel complete, even when they aren't. And when enough of us share the same almost memory, it feels real, solid, and true, even when it isn't. And maybe that's the most interesting part, because it means reality, as we experience it, isn't just external. It's collaborative, it's reconstructed, and it's human. Okay, guys, so now I need your help. What is your Mandela Effect? What do you remember vividly, confidently, but apparently it never happened? It can be a personal story. It can be something like, within your family. It can be something that's larger a little bit, like the things I'm talking about. DM me on Instagram, email me, send it in, because I'm collecting them. And if enough of us remember the same thing, we may need a part 2. Or we may need to call the simulation developers. Either way, I want to know. So I will see you next time. DM me on Instagram at cathasquestions. Email me, cathasquestionspod@gmail.com. Whatever way you can get in touch with me, send it in. Thanks for listening to Cat Has Questions. If you liked this episode, follow the show and share it with someone who loves a good spiral. See you next week.